I bought a house for my girlfriend with hard work and was ready to propose, but she suddenly wanted to find her true self. Hey Reddit, my name's David, I'm 29, and I never thought I'd be posting here, but I really need to vent. My girlfriend of 5 years, Emily, 28, just turned my world upside down. After years of working overtime, saving every penny, and planning our future together, I finally bought us a house, a dream home that was supposed to be the start of our new life. I had a ring ready and was planning the perfect proposal. But right when everything seemed to be falling into place, Emily told me she needed to find herself. Now, everything I've been working toward feels like it's falling apart. Here's the full story of how I went from the happiest I'd ever been to feeling completely lost, from falling in love to losing it all. To understand how devastating this all is, you need to know how Emily and I met and the bond we shared. I was 24, fresh out of college and working my first real job as a junior project manager at a construction firm. I was figuring out adult life, balancing a demanding job, paying off student loans, and trying to carve out a future for myself. That's when I met Emily at a mutual friend's birthday party. She was 23, full of life, and unlike anyone I'd ever met. Emily was a nurse, and she had this incredible ability to connect with people. She could make anyone feel seen and heard, and I was no exception. She was funny, smart, and effortlessly kind, with this laid-back energy that drew people in. I remember that night so clearly, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing a simple dress, and laughing at something ridiculous our friend had said. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room, even when surrounded by a crowd. We spent most of the night talking, discovering shared interests in music, travel, and a love for trying new foods. I found out that Emily was passionate about her job, but she was also feeling the burnout that often comes with nursing. She told me stories about her patients, her long shifts, and the emotional toll it took, but she spoke about it all with such a sense of purpose. She was driven by the need to help others, and I admired her so much for that. We started dating shortly after that night. Our early days were filled with spontaneous adventures, late-night drives with the windows down, concerts at tiny venues, and lazy Sundays at the farmer's market. I loved how unpredictable and exciting it all was, especially compared to the structured, sometimes monotonous life I'd been leading. Emily had a way of making the ordinary feel extraordinary. She'd dance in the kitchen while making dinner, drag me out of bed at 5 a.m. to watch the sunrise, and leave little notes in my car just to brighten my day. But beyond the fun and romance, Emily was someone I could lean on. She was there for me during the stressful days at work when a project went south, or when I was doubting myself. She'd sit with me, listen to me vent, and remind me of what I was capable of. I'd never met someone who understood me the way she did, and it didn't take long for me to fall completely in love with her. After about a year of dating, Emily and I started talking about moving in together. It felt like the natural next step. We were spending almost every night at each other's places anyway, and we loved being around each other. We found a small apartment downtown, with just enough space for us and our combined quirks. It wasn't much, but it was ours. We painted the walls, decorated with thrift store finds and photos from our travels, and filled the place with plants that Emily took pride in tending to. Living together wasn't without its challenges, of course. Emily worked crazy hours at the hospital, often pulling doubles or getting called in on her days off. There were nights when she'd come home exhausted, too tired to even talk, and I'd just sit with her, holding her hand until she fell asleep on the couch. But no matter how tired she was, she always made time for us. She'd plan little date nights, surprise me with my favorite meals, and remind me every day of why I loved her so much. Emily's adventurous spirit was something I adored, but also something that occasionally scared me. She'd often talk about wanting to travel the world, take time off work, and just go wherever the wind took her. She'd scroll through Instagram, showing me pictures of far-off places and telling me how badly she wanted to see them. I was more of a homebody. I liked structure, plans, and the comfort of knowing what was next. But I admired her desire for more, even if I didn't always share it. We balanced each other out. Her spontaneity kept our lives exciting, and my steady nature provided the stability we both needed. We'd have long talks about our future, what we wanted, and how we'd make it all work. I felt like we were a team, figuring out life together, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take us. Emily was more than my girlfriend, she was my best friend, my partner, and the person I wanted to spend forever with. As our relationship grew stronger, I started thinking seriously about our future. I knew I wanted to marry Emily, I couldn't imagine my life without her. We talked about it in passing, always joking about what our wedding might look like or where we'd want to live, but I knew deep down that I was ready to make it a reality. I wanted to give Emily the life she'd always dreamed of, a home of our own, a place where we could build a family, and the kind of security that she'd never really had growing up. Emily came from a modest background. Her parents had divorced when she was young, and her mom had struggled to make ends meet while raising Emily and her younger brother. Emily's upbringing had made her fiercely independent and resourceful, but it also meant that she'd never had much in the way of stability. She'd told me once that her biggest dream was to have a home where she felt safe and secure, a place she could truly call her own. I wanted to make that dream come true. I started saving every extra dollar I could, bonuses, overtime, even money I'd usually spend on small luxuries like eating out or buying new clothes. I cut back on everything, determined to build a future for us that we could be proud of. I worked long hours at the construction firm, often staying late or taking on extra projects to earn more. I even started doing freelance work on the side, helping friends and acquaintances with home renovations and repairs. Emily knew I was working hard, but I didn't tell her the full extent of my plans. I wanted it to be a surprise, something that would show her just how much she meant to me. I'd listen closely when she talked about her dream home, big windows, lots of light, a garden, and a cozy reading nook where she could curl up with a book after a long day. Every detail she mentioned, I filed away in my mind, determined to find a place that checked all her boxes. After nearly 2 years of saving, I finally started looking at houses. It wasn't easy, the market was competitive, and every time I found a place I liked, it seemed to disappear before I could even schedule a tour. But I kept searching, spending my weekends driving through neighborhoods, attending open houses, and meeting with real estate agents. I was picky, I didn't want just any house, I wanted the perfect one. I'd walk through each property, imagining how Emily would react, picturing us cooking dinner together, hosting friends, and building our lives within those walls. Then one day, I found it. It was a charming, 2-bedroom bungalow on a quiet street lined with oak trees. It had a little front porch, a spacious backyard, and the sunlit kitchen that Emily had always dreamed of. The place needed a bit of work, nothing major, just some cosmetic updates and a few repairs, but as I walked through the rooms, I could see it all so clearly, the future we'd have, the memories we'd make, and the life we'd build together. I put in an offer that same day, and after a few tense weeks of negotiations, the house was mine. I couldn't believe it. All the hard work, all the sacrifices, had finally paid off. I'd bought us a home, a place where we could start our forever. I planned the perfect way to reveal it to Emily, imagining her face when she saw it for the first time. I even picked out the perfect spot in the backyard under a big oak tree where I'd get down on one knee and propose. I bought the ring, a simple yet elegant solitaire that I knew Emily would love, and started planning every detail of the proposal. I couldn't wait to start this next chapter with her, to finally make all our dreams come true. But just as I was ready to take that leap, everything started to fall apart. In the weeks leading up to the big reveal, I started noticing changes in Emily. At first, they were small things. She'd come home from work looking more tired than usual, and she'd spend her evenings on the balcony, staring off into the distance with a glass of wine. She seemed quieter, more introspective, and less excited about the things we used to enjoy together. I'd ask her how her day was, and she'd give me short, vague answers, like she was somewhere else entirely. Emily had always been the kind of person who wore her heart on her sleeve, but now she felt distant, like there was a wall between us that I couldn't see. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she was just stressed from work or going through a rough patch. But as the days turned into weeks, the distance only grew. She started spending more time alone, going for long walks or disappearing into her room with the door closed. She'd stay up late, scrolling through her phone, and I'd catch glimpses of travel blogs, inspirational quotes, and posts about finding yourself. I tried to talk to her, but every time I brought it up, she'd downplay it, saying she was just tired or feeling overwhelmed. But I knew it was more than that. There was a restlessness in her eyes, a longing that I didn't know how to satisfy, She'd talk about wanting to travel, to take a break from work, and to figure things out, but she never said what exactly she was trying to figure out. It was like she was searching for something, but she didn't know what it was. One night, as we were lying in bed, Emily turned to me with tears in her eyes. "David, do you ever feel like you're stuck? Like there's this whole world out there that you're missing out on?" I was taken aback. I'd always been content with our life, with the stability we'd built together. "I mean, sure, sometimes," I said, trying to be honest. "But I'm happy with us. I'm happy with what we're building." Emily nodded, but her expression was distant, her thoughts somewhere far away. I feel like there's so much I haven't done. So many places I haven't seen. I don't want to look back one day and feel like I missed out on something important." I didn't know how to respond. I loved Emily more than anything, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was slipping away from me. I told her that we could do anything she wanted, that we could travel, take time off, and explore the world together. But she just smiled sadly and said, "It's not that simple." I spent the next few days on edge, unsure of where we stood. I wanted to tell Emily about the house, to show her that I was committed to building a future with her, but I was afraid it would come off as pressure. I didn't want her to feel trapped or like I was trying to tie her down. I just wanted her to be happy, but I didn't know how to make that happen anymore. Then, one evening after dinner, Emily sat me down and told me something I never expected to hear. We were sitting at the kitchen table, eating takeout in silence when Emily put down her fork and looked at me with tears in her eyes. "David, I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her voice shaky. "I love you so much, but I've been feeling lost lately. I feel like I've been living my life for everyone else, and I don't even know who I am anymore." I felt my heart sink. "What do you mean, Emily? What's going on?" She took a deep breath, struggling to find the right words. "I need to figure out who I am outside of us. I've spent so much time being your girlfriend, the nurse, the good daughter, and I've lost sight of myself in the process. I need to take some time to figure things out on my own." I was stunned. 5 years together, and now she was telling me she needed to find herself. I tried to stay calm, but inside, I was panicking. "Are you saying you want to break up?" Emily shook her head, but the uncertainty in her eyes told me she didn't really know what she wanted. "I don't know, David. I just need some space. I need to travel, to see new places, and to find out who I am without all the expectations. I'm not saying this is the end, but I can't keep ignoring this feeling." I sat there, numb. I wanted to tell her about the house, about the ring, and about all the plans I'd been making for us. I wanted to show her that everything she was looking for was right here, that we could still have the life we dreamed of, just with a little more adventure. But I knew that wasn't what she needed to hear. She was lost, and no amount of promises or plans could fix that. Emily packed a bag and moved out that weekend, staying with a friend while she figured things out. I was left alone in our apartment, surrounded by the memories of the life we'd built together. I'd come home from work and expect to see her there, cooking dinner or curled up on the couch with a book, but the apartment was empty. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying our conversations and trying to understand where it all went wrong. The hardest part was not knowing. Not knowing if she'd come back, not knowing if she'd find whatever she was looking for, and not knowing if there was still a place for me in her future. I'd text her, trying to keep the lines of communication open, but her responses were always brief and vague. It was like she was already halfway out the door, and I was the one clinging to something that was slipping away. I spent a lot of time at the house during those weeks. I'd go there after work, sitting on the floor of the empty living room and imagining what could have been. I'd picture Emily's laughter echoing off the walls, the smell of her cooking filling the air, and the life we'd planned to build. I'd stand under the oak tree in the backyard, the spot where I was supposed to propose, and feel the weight of everything I'd lost. One night, I finally took the ring out of my pocket and stared at it under the moonlight. It was beautiful, simple, and exactly what I knew Emily would have wanted. But now it was just a painful reminder of all the plans that would never come to be. I slipped it back into its box, locked up the house, and drove away, feeling like I was leaving a part of myself behind. After Emily left, I threw myself into work to avoid the emptiness that had settled in my life. I took on every project I could, working late into the night and volunteering for weekend shifts just to keep my mind off things. I didn't want to go home to the empty apartment that no longer felt like home, and I couldn't bear to be at the house that was meant for a future that was now uncertain. Friends and family reached out, but I found it hard to talk about what had happened. I felt embarrassed, like I'd been blindsided by something I should have seen coming. I'd built my whole life around Emily, convinced that we were on the same page, and now it felt like everything had been pulled out from under me. I couldn't understand how the person I loved so deeply could just walk away, and I spent countless nights questioning everything. I'd catch myself checking Emily's social media, looking for any hint of what she was doing or where she was. She'd post pictures of her travels, hiking in national parks, exploring new cities, and meeting new people. She looked happy, or at least she was good at pretending to be. I wanted to be happy for her, but every photo felt like a punch to the gut, a reminder that she was out there living her best life while I was stuck picking up the pieces. The house sat empty, and I debated selling it more than once. I couldn't stand the sight of it, the porch where we talked about having morning coffee, the kitchen Emily would have loved, and the bedroom where I'd pictured us starting a family. But something in me couldn't let go. I'd put so much of myself into making that dream a reality, and even though Emily was no longer a part of it, I wasn't ready to give up on it entirely. I started making small changes, trying to reclaim the space as my own. I painted the walls, built some shelves, and spent weekends fixing up the yard. It was hard work, but it felt good to have something to focus on. I'd blast music, get lost in the rhythm of the work, and for a few hours, I could forget about everything else. I was slowly turning the house into something that felt less like a monument to what I'd lost and more like a place that reflected who I was becoming. I kept the ring in a drawer, hidden away but never completely out of mind. I couldn't bring myself to get rid of it, it felt like a piece of my heart that I wasn't ready to part with. Some nights, I'd pull it out and wonder what would have happened if I'd proposed sooner or if I'd told Emily about the house before she decided to leave. But no matter how many times I replayed it in my mind, I couldn't change the past. I tried to go on dates, to put myself out there and move on, but it never felt right. Every time I'd meet someone new, I'd find myself comparing them to Emily, and no one ever measured up. I wasn't ready to let go of what we'd had, and I couldn't bring myself to start over with someone else. It felt like I was stuck in limbo, unable to move forward but unwilling to let go of the past. As time went on, I realized that in trying so hard to build a future for Emily and me, I'd lost sight of who I was. I'd been so focused on making her happy, on giving her everything she'd ever dreamed of, that I'd forgotten to ask what I wanted. The house, the proposal, the plans, they'd all been about us, but now that us was gone, I had to figure out who I was on my own. I decided to start therapy, something I'd never considered before but knew I needed. I was hesitant at first, unsure of what to expect, but it turned out to be one of the best decisions I'd ever made. My therapist helped me unpack all the feelings I'd been burying, the grief, the anger, the sense of betrayal, and taught me that it was okay to mourn the loss of a future that would never happen. I learned that healing wasn't about forgetting, it was about finding a way to move forward with the lessons I'd learned. I started reconnecting with parts of myself that I'd put on the back burner during my relationship with Emily. I picked up my guitar for the first time in years, spending quiet evenings strumming chords and writing songs that helped me process everything I was feeling. Music had always been a passion of mine, something I'd let slip away in the hustle of work and life, and it felt good to have it back. I also started running again, something I hadn't done since college. I'd wake up early, lacing up my shoes and hitting the pavement before the sun came up. Running gave me a sense of freedom, a way to clear my mind and reconnect with my body. It was my time to think, to reflect, and to let go of all the heavy emotions that had been weighing me down. I'd run through the quiet streets, feeling the cool morning air on my face, and with every step, I felt a little bit lighter. The house became my project, my sanctuary, and my way of moving forward. I turned one of the spare rooms into a studio, a place where I could paint, play music, and just be creative. I filled the walls with art, hung up photos of my travels, and made the space uniquely mine. The backyard, which had once been the site of my would-be proposal, became a place of peace. I planted a garden, built a small patio, and spent countless afternoons sitting under the oak tree, reading, journaling, or just soaking in the quiet. Slowly, I started to feel like myself again. The pain was still there, but it wasn't as consuming as it once was. I found new reasons to smile, new goals to work toward, and new ways to enjoy my own company. I realized that my worth wasn't tied to Emily, the house, or the future I tried to build. I was enough on my own, and that was a lesson I needed to learn. I began setting new goals for myself, focusing on my career and personal growth. I enrolled in a night class to learn about real estate investment, something I'd always been curious about but never pursued. I started volunteering at a local community center, using my construction skills to help renovate spaces for underprivileged families. It felt good to be doing something meaningful, to be using my time and skills to make a positive impact. I also started traveling on my own, something I'd never really done before. I took weekend trips to nearby cities, explored new hiking trails, and even booked a solo trip to a national park I'd always wanted to visit. It was daunting at first, but each trip felt like a small victory, a reminder that I could find adventure and joy on my own terms. It's been a year since Emily left, and while I still think about her from time to time, I've come to accept that we're on different paths now. She's still out there, traveling, exploring, and finding herself, and I genuinely hope she's happy. I don't hold any anger toward her anymore. I understand now that sometimes people need to leave to find what they're looking for, even if it means hurting the people they love. The house has transformed from a painful reminder into a symbol of my resilience. It's no longer just the place I bought for Emily and me, it's my home, my sanctuary, and the place where I've rediscovered myself. I've hosted friends, thrown small dinner parties, and opened the doors to new experiences that I never would have imagined a year ago. The life I'm building now isn't the one I'd planned, but it's one I'm proud of. I'm not in a rush to figure out what's next. I'm taking things one day at a time, enjoying the present, and staying open to whatever the future might bring. I've learned to appreciate the journey, to find joy in the little moments, and to not let anyone else dictate my happiness. I've also learned that it's okay to let go of the past, to release the dreams that no longer serve you, and to make room for new ones. The ring? It's still in the drawer, tucked away but no longer a source of pain. I'm not sure what I'll do with it, maybe I'll sell it, maybe I'll keep it, or maybe I'll use it when I'm ready to propose to someone new. But for now, it's just a part of my story, a reminder of what I've been through and how far I've come. I've also started dating again, cautiously and without any pressure. I'm meeting new people, making new connections, and allowing myself to be open to love again, but this time on my own terms. I'm not looking to rush into anything, I'm just enjoying the process of getting to know myself and others, and seeing where it leads. To anyone out there who's been blindsided by a breakup, who's lost the future they thought they had, just know that it's okay to feel lost. It's okay to take time to heal, to rediscover yourself, and to rebuild on your own terms. Life doesn't always go as planned, but sometimes the unexpected detours lead you to exactly where you need to be. Reddit update, the aftermath. Opie, I bought a house for my girlfriend with hard work and was ready to propose, but she suddenly wanted to find her true self. Hey everyone, it's been a while since I shared my story, and I just wanted to give an update. First off, thank you for all the kind words and support. It's been a tough journey, but I've come a long way since Emily left. I've learned to let go of the anger and sadness and to focus on building a life that makes me happy. I'm still in the house, and I've made it my own. It's become a place of healing and creativity, and I'm finally starting to see it as a symbol of my resilience rather than a reminder of what I lost. I'm working on new goals, exploring new passions, and taking things one day at a time. As for Emily, we're not really in touch anymore, but I hope she's found what she was looking for. I've realized that sometimes people come into your life to teach you something, even if it's not the lesson you expected. I'm grateful for the good times we had, and I'm at peace with how things ended. To anyone else going through something similar, just remember that it's okay to feel hurt, to grieve, and to take time for yourself. But also know that there's life on the other side of heartbreak, and you're stronger than you think. Keep moving forward, and don't let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. Thanks again, Reddit. Your support has meant the world.